Danny Carter had never wanted to be a hero. He had never even wanted to be a soldier. But the universe has a strange sense of humor, and sometimes it pushes ordinary people into extraordinary situations whether they like it or not. Danny was 24 years old and worked as a logistics clerk aboard the starship Valiant Hope. His job was simple and boring. He spent his days looking at computer screens, processing supply requests, and making sure that toilet paper and food rations got to the right places at the right times. It was not exciting work, but Danny liked it that way. He had joined the United Earth Fleet because it paid well and offered free education. He had never planned to see combat. He had never planned to be anywhere near a battlefield. The Valiant Hope was stationed in a quiet sector of space, far away from the war with the Dominion. They were an alien species that had been fighting humanity for 3 years. They were big, they were scary, and they had killed thousands of human soldiers on dozens of worlds. Danny had seen pictures of them in news reports. They looked like giant mantises with extra arms and razor-sharp claws. He had nightmares about them sometimes, even though he had never seen one in real life. His life on the Valiant Hope was comfortable and safe. He woke up at the same time every day, ate the same breakfast, went to the same office, and did the same work. His were friendly. His boss was reasonable. His room was small but clean. Danny was content with this routine. He did not need adventure or glory. He just wanted to do his job, save some money, and maybe go back to Earth someday to open a small restaurant. But then came the night that changed everything. It was late, around 2 in the morning ship time. Danny was working the night shift alone. Most of the crew was asleep. The lights in the logistics office were dim, and the only sound was the soft hum of the computer systems. Danny was tired. His eyes felt heavy and his mind was fuzzy. He had been staring at the same screen for hours, filling out form after form. He needed to order more ration packs for Section 7. It was a simple task. He had done it 1,000 times before. He opened the request form on his terminal and started typing. His fingers moved slowly across the keyboard. He could barely keep his eyes open. The form had many fields and many buttons. Danny filled in the numbers without really thinking. He just wanted to finish and go to bed. When he reached the bottom of the screen, he moved his mouse to click the submit button, but his hand was shaky from exhaustion. His finger slipped. Instead of clicking on Supply Request, he clicked on the button right next to it, the button that said Combat Deployment Volunteer. Danny did not notice his mistake at first. He yawned and rubbed his eyes. Then he looked at the screen and saw the confirmation message. His heart stopped. Transfer approved. Report to Bay 4 at 600. Destination Prime. Duration indefinite. Danny stared at the words in disbelief. This could not be happening. Prime was one of the most dangerous in the entire war. Human soldiers were dying there every day. They had turned the planet into a meat grinder. He tried to cancel the transfer. He clicked every button he could find. He searched through menus and settings, but it was too late. The military computer system had already processed his request and sent it to the Central Command. In the eyes of the bureaucracy, Danny Carter had just volunteered for combat duty. He ran to his supervisor's office and pounded on the door. Lieutenant Maya Brooks opened it with a sleepy and annoyed expression. Danny explained what had happened, his words tumbling out in a panic. Lieutenant Brooks listened, then checked her own terminal. She shook her head slowly. "I'm sorry, Carter," she said. "Once a volunteer transfer is approved, it cannot be reversed without authorization from Sector Command. That could take weeks. Your leave's in 4 hours." Danny felt the floor drop out from under him. He begged her to do something, anything. But Lieutenant Brooks could only give him a sad look and tell him to pack his things. The next few hours passed in a blur. Danny stuffed his belongings into a bag with shaking hands. He said goodbye to his, who looked at him like he was already dead. He walked to Bay 4 on legs that felt like rubber. It was full of real soldiers, men and women with hard faces and scars. They wore combat armor and carried plasma rifles. Danny wore his logistics uniform and carried a standard-issue pistol that he had never fired outside of basic training. He found a seat in the corner and tried to make himself as small as possible. A woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes sat down next to him. Her armor had sergeant stripes on the shoulder. "You the new replacement?" she asked. Danny nodded weakly. "Name?" "Danny Carter, ma'am." "I'm Sergeant Grant. What's your specialty, Carter?" Danny swallowed hard. "I'm a logistics clerk, ma'am. I'm good with spreadsheets." Sergeant Grant stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "Spreadsheets," she repeated. "They sent me a guy who's good with spreadsheets." The other soldiers in the herd heard her and started laughing too. Danny's face turned red. He wanted to disappear. He wanted to wake up and find out this was all a bad dream. But it was not a dream. The engines roared to life, and Danny felt the vibration through his seat as the craft lifted off. Through the small window beside him, he watched the Valiant Hope grow smaller and smaller until it was just a dot of light against the stars. He was going to war. He was going to a planet where people died every day, and he had no idea how to fight, how to survive, or how to do anything except count supplies and fill out forms. Danny closed his eyes and tried to control his breathing. He thought about his mother back on Earth. He thought about the restaurant he had wanted to open. He thought about all the things he might never get to do. They flew on through the darkness of space, carrying him toward a future he had never chosen and a destiny he could not escape. Danny Carter, the logistics clerk who pressed the wrong button, was about to learn what he was really made of. They hit the atmosphere of Prime like a stone falling into water. The whole craft shook and rattled. Red warning lights flashed on the ceiling. Danny gripped his seat so hard that his knuckles turned white. "Incoming fire," the pilot shouted over the intercom. "Everyone hold on." Danny heard explosions outside. Something hit the side of and the metal screamed. Soldiers around him cursed and prayed. A young man across from Danny was muttering the same words over and over again. Danny could not hear what he was saying, but he understood the fear in his eyes. They landed hard. The rear door opened with a loud hiss, and bright sunlight poured in along with the sound of gunfire. Sergeant Grant was on her feet instantly. "Move, move, move," she screamed. The soldiers ran out of in a line. Danny followed them because he did not know what else to do. His legs felt weak, and his heart was pounding so fast that he thought it might explode. Outside was chaos. The sky was orange with smoke and fire. The ground was rocky and covered with craters. Plasma bolts flew through the air like deadly fireflies, leaving trails of light behind them. Danny saw human soldiers crouching behind rocks and broken vehicles, firing their weapons at something in the distance. Then he saw them for the first time. They were worse than the pictures, much worse. They stood over 2 meters tall, with bodies covered in hard black shells. They had 4 arms ending in claws that looked sharp enough to cut through steel. Their heads were triangular, with large red eyes that seemed to glow with hunger. They moved fast, faster than anything that big should be able to move, running toward the human positions in a wave of clicking and screaming. Danny froze. He could not move, he could not think. He just stood there in the open, watching death come toward him. A hand grabbed his collar and threw him behind a large rock. It was Sergeant Grant. "Stay down, spreadsheet boy," she yelled, "and try not to die." She raised her rifle and started firing. The plasma bolts from her weapon hit in the chest and it fell, but 2 more took its place. Danny pressed himself against the rock. His pistol was in his hand, but he had forgotten how to use it. His training seemed like a distant memory, something that had happened to a different person in a different life. The battle went on for what felt like hours. Danny heard screams and explosions all around him. He smelled smoke and blood and something else, something alien and bitter. Twice, warriors came close to his position, and twice, other soldiers killed them before they could reach him. Danny felt useless. He felt like a burden. He was taking up space and using air that real soldiers needed. He was going to die here on this horrible planet, and he would not even take a single enemy with him. But then something changed in his mind. As the panic slowly faded, Danny started to notice things. His brain began to work again, not like a soldier's brain, but like a logistics clerk's brain. He started to see patterns. They were attacking from the east, coming through a narrow valley between two high ridges. It was the only easy path to the human position. They were funneling through it in large numbers, pushing forward in a constant stream. Danny had seen this kind of thing before, not on a battlefield, but in supply chain diagrams. It was a bottleneck, where traffic slowed down and piled up. They were creating their own traffic jam. They were so eager to attack that they were crowding into the valley and getting in each other's way. The ones in front could not move forward fast enough, and the ones behind kept pushing. It was inefficient. It was a weakness. Danny looked around. The human soldiers were spread out in a wide defensive line, trying to cover all directions at once. But the attack was only coming from one direction. They were wasting their firepower. He crawled over to Sergeant Grant, who was reloading her rifle behind a burned-out vehicle. "Sergeant," he shouted over the noise of battle. "The valley, they're all coming through the valley." "I know that, Carter, I have eyes." "No, you don't understand. They're stuck. They're bunched up in there like cargo in a bad shipping container. If we focus all our fire on that one spot, we can kill dozens at a time." Sergeant Grant looked at him like he was crazy, but she also looked tired and desperate. The battle was not going well. They were running out of ammunition and options. "You want me to pull everyone back and concentrate on one point?" she asked. "Yes, trust me. It's basic logistics. You don't spread your resources thin when there's only one delivery route." For a moment, Danny thought she would ignore him, but then she nodded. "Fine, we'll try it your way, spreadsheet boy. If this doesn't work, we're all dead anyway." She started shouting orders into her radio. Soldiers began moving, leaving their positions and gathering behind a row of rocks that faced the valley entrance directly. Danny moved with them, still holding his pistol, still terrified. "Everyone aim for the valley mouth," Sergeant Grant commanded. "On my signal, give them everything you have." They kept coming, pouring through the narrow passage like water through a pipe. They did not realize what was about to happen. Fire! 20 plasma rifles fired at the same time, all aimed at the same spot. The effect was devastating. The first wave fell instantly, their bodies torn apart by concentrated fire. The ones behind them stumbled over the corpses. More fire came and more died. The valley became a killing ground, filled with smoke and burning alien flesh. The attack broke. The surviving turned and ran, disappearing back through the valley. A cheer went up from the human soldiers. They had won. Against all odds, they had won. Sergeant Grant walked over to Danny, who was sitting on the ground with his back against a rock. His hands were still shaking. "That was a good call, Carter," she said. Her voice was different now. There was respect in it. "I just saw a pattern," Danny said weakly. "It's what I do." "Well, keep doing it. You might be useful after all." That night, word spread through the company about the logistics clerk who had turned the battle around. Lieutenant, the company commander, called Danny to his tent. He was a tall man with tired eyes and gray at his temples. "I heard what you did today, Carter," Lieutenant said. "I need someone to look at our supply lines. We've been having problems for weeks. Ammunition not arriving, food going to the wrong places. Can you help?" Danny nodded. "Yes, sir, that's what I'm trained for." He spent the rest of the night looking at charts and schedules. By morning, he had found 17 major inefficiencies and fixed all of them. Danny Carter had arrived on Prime as a mistake, but he was starting to become something more. 2 weeks passed on Prime. Danny Carter was no longer the scared logistics clerk who had stumbled off. He was still scared, of course. Only a fool would not be scared in a war zone, but he had found his place. He had found a way to be useful. During the day, he worked on supply chains and distribution schedules. He made sure that bullets went where they were needed and that food did not rot in forgotten storage containers. He found ways to save time and resources that the military had been wasting for months. The soldiers started to respect him. They stopped calling him Spreadsheet Boy and started calling him the Fixer instead. At night, he could not sleep. He lay in his small tent and listened to the distant sounds of explosions and gunfire. He thought about home. He thought about how one wrong button press had brought him here. He wondered if he would ever see Earth again. Then something happened that changed his life even more than the war. A squad of soldiers returned from a raid on an outpost. They had captured an enemy prisoner. This was unusual. The rarely surrendered and humans rarely took them alive, but this prisoner was different. Danny first saw her when they brought her into the camp. She was nothing like the warriors he had seen on the battlefield. Those were massive creatures built for killing. This one was smaller, slender, almost delicate. Her shell was a lighter color, more brown than black, with patterns that looked almost like decorations. She had wings folded against her back, thin and shimmering like glass. Her eyes were large and a deep shade of purple instead of red. She walked with dignity, even though her hands were bound. She did not look at the soldiers around her with hatred or fear. She looked at them with something like curiosity. "What is she?" Danny asked one of the soldiers. "Diplomat caste," the soldier said. "Found her hiding in the outpost. High-value prisoner. Intelligence wants to question her." They put her in a holding cell near the edge of the camp. It was a small room with metal walls and a single light. Danny was assigned to guard duty that first night. It was considered an easy job, something you gave to non-combat personnel. All he had to do was sit outside the door and make sure nobody went in or out without permission. Danny sat in a folding chair with his pistol on his belt. He stared at the door for a long time. He could hear soft sounds from inside, something that might have been breathing or might have been crying. After an hour, he could not take it anymore. He stood up, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The prisoner was sitting in the corner of the cell. She looked up when he entered. Her purple eyes were wet with some kind of moisture. Tears, Danny realized. She was crying. "I'm not here to hurt you," Danny said. His voice sounded strange in his own ears. He was talking to an alien, an enemy, but she looked so sad and so alone. The prisoner made a clicking sound, and then the translator device in Danny's ear activated. Her words came through in accented English. "You are different from the others," she said. "You do not look at me like I am a monster." "You don't look like a monster to me," Danny said. "You look scared." She was silent for a moment. Then she made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I am scared. I have been scared for a long time." Danny sat down on the floor across from her. He did not know why. It just felt like the right thing to do. "My name is Danny," he said. "I am called," she replied. They talked for hours that night. Danny learned that was not a warrior and had never wanted to be part of this war. She belonged to a faction within the Dominion that believed in peace with humans. They thought that the two species could share the galaxy instead of fighting over it, but their voices were silenced. The warrior caste controlled everything. Anyone who spoke against the war was punished. Had been sent to Prime as a punishment. Her superiors hoped she would die in the fighting. Instead, she had been captured by humans. "I have never killed anyone," she told Danny. "I have never wanted to kill anyone. I just wanted to build bridges between our people, but no one would listen." Danny told her his own story. He told her about the wrong button press, about his fear, about how strange it felt to be useful in a war he never wanted to join. Listened with those big purple eyes, and when he finished, she made that clicking laugh again. "We are both accidents," she said. "You are here by mistake, and I am here because I dared to dream of something better." From that night on, Danny visited every time he had guard duty. He traded shifts with other soldiers so he could see her more often. He brought her better food from the supply stores, things that were not just standard prisoner rations. He brought her books from the human database, stories and histories and poems. She read them all with hungry curiosity. In return, told him about her people. She explained how they lived, how they thought, how they loved. She told him about the hive queens who ruled their society and the complex politics between different castes. She told him secrets, things that could help the humans win battles. "Why are you telling me this?" Danny asked one night. "They're your people." His wings shivered slightly. "They stopped being my people when they chose war over peace. The warriors who attack your soldiers, they are not my brothers and sisters. They are strangers who have lost their way. If helping you means ending this war faster, then I will help." Danny looked at her in the dim light of the cell. He saw intelligence and kindness in her alien face. He saw courage that he himself did not have. And he saw something else, something that made his heart beat a little faster. "I think you're the bravest person I've ever met," he said. His eyes widened. She reached out with one of her slender hands and Danny took it. Her skin was smooth and cool like polished wood. It was the strangest thing he had ever touched and also the most wonderful. "No one has ever called me brave before," she said softly. "Thank you, Danny." They sat together in the silence, holding hands across the divide between their species. Outside, the war continued. Bombs fell and soldiers died. But in that small cell, something new was growing, something that neither of them had expected. Danny Carter, the logistics clerk, was falling in love with an alien prisoner, and somewhere in her strange and beautiful heart was falling in love with him too. The war on Prime had reached a turning point. After weeks of fighting, the human forces had pushed the back to their main stronghold, a massive underground complex called the Command Hive. Intelligence reports said that the Hive Queen herself was inside, directing all military operations on the planet. If the humans could reach her, they could end the battle for Prime once and for all. But the Command Hive was a fortress. It was buried deep underground, protected by thousands of warriors and layers of defenses that seemed impossible to break. Every frontal assault had failed. Hundreds of soldiers had died trying to breach the entrance. Lieutenant called a meeting of his officers and advisors. Danny was invited because of his work on logistics and planning. He sat in the back of the room, listening as the others argued about what to do next. "We don't have the numbers for another direct attack," Sergeant Grant said. "We've lost too many people already." "Then we call for reinforcements," another officer suggested. "Reinforcements won't arrive for 3 weeks. By then, they will have rebuilt their strength." The argument went in circles. No one had a solution. Danny listened and thought. His mind worked the way it always did, looking for patterns and inefficiencies. And then an idea came to him. He stood up. Everyone looked at him. "Sir, I might have a suggestion," Danny said. Lieutenant nodded. "Go ahead, Carter. At this point, I'll listen to anything." They built their hive like a city. It has supply routes and tunnels that connect different parts of the complex. I've been studying the maps we captured from the outpost. There's a network of maintenance tunnels that run underneath the main defenses. They're used for moving food and materials, not soldiers. "You want us to go through the supply tunnels?" Sergeant Grant asked. "Yes. A small team could get inside without triggering the main defenses. We plant explosives at key structural points and destroy the hive from within." The room was quiet. Lieutenant rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "It could work," he said slowly, "but we'd need a guide, someone who knows those tunnels." Danny took a deep breath. "I know someone, sir, the prisoner. She's a diplomat caste. She knows the internal layout of hives, and she wants to help us." There were protests and arguments. Many officers did not trust a prisoner, no matter what she said, but Lieutenant silenced them. "We don't have many options left. If Carter trusts her, that's enough for me. Prepare a strike team." The mission was planned for the following night. Danny insisted on going, even though everyone told him he was crazy. He was not a soldier. He had no business being on a combat operation. But he could not let go alone, and he could not ask others to risk their lives for a plan he had created. Sergeant Grant led the strike team. There were 10 soldiers in total, plus Danny, and they moved through the darkness toward the entrance of the maintenance tunnels, which had marked on a map. The tunnel entrance was hidden in a rocky hillside covered by vegetation. Found it easily. Her eyes could see in the dark, and she moved through the alien landscape like she belonged there. Because she did, Danny realized. This was her world, even if she was fighting against her own kind. They entered the tunnels. It was pitch black inside, and the air smelled strange, like rotting flowers mixed with something metallic. The soldiers turned on their helmet lights, casting narrow beams into the darkness. Led the way, her wings folded tight against her back. For an hour, they walked through the winding passages. They passed storage rooms filled with alien food and chambers where small workers away at their approach. These were not warriors. They were civilians, and told the soldiers not to harm them. Then things went wrong. A patrol of warriors appeared from a side tunnel. There was a brief, vicious firefight. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness. 2 human soldiers fell. The patrol was destroyed, but the noise had alerted others. "They know we're here," Sergeant Grant said. "We need to move fast." They ran through the tunnels. More came after them. The sound of claws on stone echoed from every direction. Danny fired his pistol at shapes in the darkness, not knowing if he hit anything. His heart was pounding so hard it hurt. In the chaos, Danny and got separated from the others. They took a wrong turn and found themselves in a narrow passage that led somewhere unexpected. Danny could hear the sounds of battle fading behind them. "Where are we?" he asked. His eyes were wide. "The central chamber. Danny, this leads to the Hive Queen." They emerged into a vast cavern. The ceiling rose so high that Danny could not see it. In the center of the chamber sat a creature so large that Danny's mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. The Hive Queen was massive, the size of a building. Her body was covered in ancient armor, cracked and from ages of existence. Her eyes, dozens of them, glowed with cold intelligence. She looked down at Danny and like they were insects. Danny froze. He could not move, he could not breathe. This was death, this was the end. But stepped forward. She spoke in her native language, a series of clicks and whistles that the translator could not follow. Her voice was strong and clear, echoing through the chamber. She spoke for a long time, gesturing with her hands, pointing at Danny, pointing at herself. The Hive Queen listened. Her many eyes blinked slowly. When finished, there was a long silence. Then the Queen spoke. Her voice was like thunder, vibrating through Danny's chest. The translator activated. "You speak of peace, little diplomat. Your kind has spoken of peace before." They were silenced. "Then silence me too," said. "But the war will continue. Both our peoples will keep dying. Is that what you want, mother of all, to rule over graves?" Another long silence. Danny watched the exchange with amazement, was bargaining with a godlike creature, and she was not afraid. The Queen's eyes turned to Danny. "This human, you care for him?" "Yes," said without hesitation. "And does he care for you?" Danny found his voice. "Yes, I do." The Queen made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sigh. Strange times, strange bonds. Perhaps the old ways must change. She raised one of her massive limbs. "I will order my warriors to withdraw from Prime. Go now, both of you. Tell your generals that the Queen offers a ceasefire. But know this, peace must be built, not just declared. If your kind breaks faith, we will return and there will be no more talking." Danny could not believe what he was hearing. The war was ending, not with an explosion but with words. Took his hand, and together they walked out of the chamber, leaving the ancient Queen alone with her thoughts. Behind them, the sounds of battle were already fading as warriors received the order to stand down. The mission had succeeded in a way no one had expected. Danny Carter, the logistics clerk who pressed the wrong button, had just helped end a war. The news spread across human space like fire through dry grass. The Battle of Prime was over. They had agreed to a ceasefire. For the first time in 3 years, there was real hope that the war might end. And everyone wanted to know about the logistics clerk who had made it happen. Danny Carter found himself at the center of attention in ways he had never imagined. Reporters called him constantly. Generals wanted to shake his hand. Politicians sent messages praising his bravery and vision. Danny did not know how to handle any of it. He just wanted to find a quiet corner and hide. But there was no hiding. 3 weeks after the mission to the command hive, Danny was ordered to return to Earth. A ceremony was being planned at the United Fleet headquarters in Geneva. He was going to receive a medal. The Silver Star was the third highest military decoration a soldier could receive. It was given for exceptional bravery in the face of the enemy. Danny did not feel brave. He felt like a man who had stumbled through a series of accidents and somehow come out alive on the other side. But the generals disagreed. In their eyes, he was a hero. The ceremony was held on a beautiful spring day. The sky was blue and clear. Birds sang in the trees outside the headquarters building. Danny stood on a stage in front of hundreds of people, wearing a dress uniform that felt stiff and uncomfortable. Cameras pointed at him from every direction. A general with many ribbons on his chest read a speech about courage and service and the spirit of humanity. Danny barely listened. His mind was somewhere else, thinking about someone who was not at the ceremony, someone who was still trapped in bureaucratic limbo thousands of light years away. Yes. After the ceasefire, the military did not know what to do with her. She was still technically an enemy prisoner, even though she had helped save countless human lives. Some officials wanted to send her back to as part of the peace negotiations. Others wanted to keep her for further questioning. Nobody asked what she wanted. Nobody asked what Danny wanted. But Danny had fought for her. He had filed paperwork every single day since returning from Prime. He had written letters to generals and politicians and anyone else who might listen. He had called in every favor he had earned during the war. He had argued and begged and refused to give up. The day before the medal ceremony, he finally received the answer he had been waiting for. His asylum request had been approved. She was free to live in human space as a protected individual. A transport ship was bringing her to Earth. The general pinned the silver star on Danny's chest. The audience applauded. Danny smiled and nodded, but his eyes kept moving to the back of the crowd, searching for someone who might not be there yet. After the formal ceremony, there was a reception with food and drinks and important people making small talk. Danny shook hands with so many strangers that his arm started to hurt. He answered the same questions over and over again. Yes, he was scared during the mission. No, he never expected to meet the Hive Queen. Yes, the prisoner really did help them. No, he could not talk about what she was like. He was about to give up hope when he saw movement at the entrance. The crowd parted, and whispers spread through the room. People were staring at something with expressions of surprise and curiosity, and in some cases, fear. Walked into the reception hall. She was beautiful. Danny had always known that, but seeing her here on Earth, among humans, made him realize it all over again. Her brown shell gleamed under the lights. Her wings were half open, catching colors and reflecting them like a prism. She wore a simple white dress that someone had given her, and she walked with the same dignity she had shown when she was a prisoner. People moved out of her way. Some of them looked hostile, some looked afraid, but did not seem to notice. Her purple eyes scanned the crowd until they found Danny, and then she smiled. Danny walked toward her. The crowd parted for him too. When they met in the middle of the room, he did not know what to say. He had thought about this moment for weeks, had imagined all the things he wanted to tell her. But now that she was here, words seemed inadequate. "You came," he said finally. "You asked me to," replied, "and you fought for me. No one has ever fought for me before." Danny took her hand. It was still smooth and cool, still strange and wonderful. He did not care that people were watching. He did not care about the whispers and the stares. "I want you to stay," he said, "here on Earth with me." "Is that allowed?" "It is now. I made sure of it." Wings shivered. That clicking laugh came from her throat, the one that Danny had learned to love. "You are very stubborn, Danny Carter." "I'm a logistics clerk. We don't give up until the paperwork is finished." She laughed again, and this time it was louder, drawing even more attention. But neither of them cared. A reporter pushed through the crowd, holding a microphone. "Specialist Carter, can you tell us about your relationship with the prisoner? Is it true that you two are romantically involved?" Danny looked at the reporter. Then he looked at. Then he did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He kissed her. It was a strange kiss. Her mouth was different from a human's, harder and smaller, but it was also warm and real and full of feeling. When they pulled apart, the room was completely silent. "Does that answer your question?" Danny asked. The reporter stammered something and backed away. The silence stretched on for another moment. Then, from somewhere in the crowd, someone started clapping. Others joined in. Within seconds, the whole room was applauding. Not everyone approved, of course. In the weeks and months that followed, Danny faced criticism and hostility from people who could not accept their relationship. There were threats and insults and protests. But there was also support from those who believed that love could bridge any divide. They got married 6 months later, in a small ceremony attended by Sergeant Grant, Lieutenant, and a handful of other friends from the war. Wore a dress made of shimmering fabric that matched her wings. Danny wore a simple suit and smiled so much that his face hurt. When a journalist asked him how a logistics clerk had ended up with a medal and an alien bride, Danny gave the same answer he always gave. "I pressed the wrong button, and then I just kept pressing forward." Took his hand, her fingers intertwining with his, and together they walked into a future that neither of them had ever planned but both of them had chosen. The war was over. The peace was fragile but real, and two accidental heroes had found something more valuable than medals or glory. They had found each other.